or how do you say, Ma'amar Rishon, the first article. There's 5 articles in this book. The first article, and we are in 104, which is Kuf Dalet. But in order to give an introduction, I'm going back to the beginning. When the rabbi meets the king, he says, "Tell me about what you believe." And the rabbi says, "We believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, who took them out of Egypt with miracles and wonders and supported them in the desert 40 years with food. You can't last more than 3 days without food in the desert. And gave them the land of Israel after it took them out of through the sea, which is a miracle. And then another miracle, crossing the Jordan River. It used to be a huge river with miracles and wonders." That's part 1. Part 2, sent Moses with his Torah and thousands of prophets, warning, remembering of the reward if you keep it, the punishment if you go against it. It's part 2. So part 1 is God choosing the Jewish people, creating the Jewish people. Part 2 is the prophets and the reward and punishment. And we are at the end of the first chapter. The book was written 400 years. This real story happened 1,400 years ago, and then Rabbi Yehuda Levi wrote this book based on the idea 400 years later. So this book was written 1,000 years ago, based on a true story that happened 400 years beforehand. Now, what happens is the way the book is written, the discussion with the king and the rabbi is a discussion that takes place in the first article, we call Ma'amar Rishon. How do we say that? The first part of the book. There's 5 parts to the book. Part 1 is only to understand what the Jewish people are about. Once you understand that, the king converts. And then part 2 is understanding what are the mitzvot. So the king really asked, what he wanted was, tell me what are the actions that I can do, because the king was sacrificing and he wanted to know mitzvot, he wanted to know actions. Before we even go anywhere about, the Torah says, before you accept all mitzvot, why do we say Shema? First we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Hashem Echad, and then we say Ve'ayah im Shemot Tishmu Ve'ahavta Hashem Elohecha. Then we say so the Gemara says La'olam Yekayem Od Malchut Shamayim U'lachar Miken All Mitzvot. First you have to accept on yourself the yoke of heaven, and then the actions. Actions come later. First you accept on yourself the yoke of heaven, the belief in God. So the whole first part of this book is about what does it mean to believe in God. And this, the 11th verse, right, where the rabbi answers and says what we believe. The whole rest of the chapter comes to explain what the rabbi said in verse 11. So everything in this book, everything is here, is explaining what we mentioned in the paragraph 11. And therefore, we're in the stage right now where we're talking about the Torah. We talked about Mount Sinai. We talked about receiving the Torah. We talked about prophecy. The last week we spoke about prophecy. Now we're going to talk about Olam Haba, the next world. Okay, this is where we are right now in the book, because he said here, he sent Moshe and his Torah and prophets. So we spoke prophets, and they give reward and punishment. And therefore, the last part of this book, of this chapter, is about prophecy, the next world, reward and punishment. And that's where we are now. How did we get to this discussion? When the king was talking about what is a prophet, he says that when you meet a prophet, you become a different person. Because you met somebody, right? It's so clear, it's so real. When you meet a prophet, it's so clear that you're meeting the next world. You came in contact with the next world. And this is what the rabbi tells the king, that a prophet is somebody that is connected to both worlds. Okay? It's a person that he hears God speaking to him. And therefore, he's like in another planet. He's in another reality. Okay? What's the proof that we have for the next world? Is the prophet. The prophet is the proof. And now this is like going off topic, and he just happened to mention this, that when you meet the prophet, you met the next world. Okay? Now this is a question that, wow, the king is like, whoa, this is an interesting topic. I want to hear more about this. Right? I want to hear more. Every person wants to know what happens after you die. Something that is important to everybody. And we all want to know, how do we know that there is the next world? Did anybody prove it? Or maybe there's nothing. A person who knows he's going to die, so you tell him, do whatever you want. Tomorrow you're going to die. Do whatever you want. Eat whatever you want. Do whatever, act however you want. There's no problem. Tomorrow you're going to die. It's over. So if, like, it's amazing, like the Torah says, you should do tshuva one day before you die. Right? Chazo yom achad lifnei mitatcha. One day before you die, do tshuva. But we don't know when it is. So do it today. So the same thing is the opposite. You don't know when you're going to die. People say, eat and drink and be merry because tomorrow we die. So, therefore, like we said, the proof to the next world comes from prophecy. Because the prophet visited somewhere else. He visits somewhere else. He came in touch with the next world. So what is the next world? What's so good there? What are we looking for? So, says the Rambam writes, and also, and this is a very important understanding. Remember, it's very important to understand. You're learning here in the yeshiva of Rav Kook. The Rav Kook landed on a boat 100 years ago in Yafo. And when he landed, he looked around, he checked what's going on, and he said, there's a lot of Torah here, it's going to expand. But I'm going to build a yeshiva because there's something missing. People are learning what to do, they're not learning why to do it. People are not learning emunah, faith. You need to learn faith. Either you have it or you don't. No, it's true. You have to have a talent for music, but then you need to actually learn music. Every Jew has a talent for faith. Now you need to develop it. Developing is by learning emunah. And he said, I'm going to start a yeshiva that learns emunah, and that's what's unique about this place, is that we learn emunah. Not what to do, but why you do it. And our connection with God. And the first book we learn, he built a track called Emunah. His first book is called Mesilat Yesharim. Everybody must learn that. That's the foundation. Once you learn that, the second book is Kuzari. Now it's important to know. Emunah, most people are supposed to learn 10% of their time Emunah, as the ratio of the head to the body. It takes time to live it. It takes time to internalize it. It's very deep. It's very uplifting. It's very potent. And therefore, you need to learn most of the time Gemara in most yeshivot, and a small amount of time Emunah, so you can really take it in. Some people, like me, my rabbi says, I have a Yetzer Hara, I want to learn Emunah all day long. But the healthy, normal way to do it is learn Gemara, Halacha, okay? And so this is what he says, Olam Haba. And so the Mesilat Yesharim, why did I mention this? Because the Mesilat Yesharim, when we've been learning for many years, Mesilat Yesharim begins with a first chapter called Klal Chovat Adam Ba'olamo, understanding your purpose in the world. And that is, the whole chapter is explaining that there's something called Olam Haba. And he explains it in 5 different angles, in 5 different directions and proofs and understandings, because unless you understand there's Olam Haba, you can't keep going to the next chapters of working on yourself, developing yourself. What is this idea of Olam Haba that's so important that you can't move forward without it? What's the message of Olam Haba? Is that there's something that you can't grasp with your physical senses, but it's more real, more eternal, and more valuable than anything else you could understand. You can't touch it with your physical senses, but it exists. the soul. You call it the soul. You can call it, your the upper world. There's the lower world. There's the upper world. But this is a reality, and it's something that the soul is much more real than the body. And by the way, that's why there's a concept called tum'ah. When you touch a dead person, you come in contact with dead, you become tameh. What makes you tameh? I heard this from Rabbi Fireman here. He said, when you see a body and there's no soul in it, you become convinced that all there is a body. And when you become convinced, that's called tumah. I believe it. I see it. It can't be that there's no real, that there's also a soul. I see only a body. And that convinces you. Okay? And that's also the same thing when it comes to the way people look at women. If you look at a woman just as a body and you believe all there is a body here, then also it's mitameh. It makes yourself that's not purity. You have to see every human being as a soul, and it makes it a little difficult sometimes when there isn't so much clothing, because it blinds you from seeing the soul. That's why it's so funny, because people think the less clothes I wear, the more people will see me. The opposite: the more less clothes you wear, the more people are blinded from seeing you, who you are. So it's actually for your own good. But that's another topic. So this is what we're saying here. So what we said. So we mentioned Olam Haba, and so the king says, well, if you're going to already mention the next world, he says, Ani ro'eh sheyeudei zulatchem shmenim b'tshneim yadchem. When it comes to, like, if I'm shopping for religion, you guys have the worst deal when it comes to the next world. The Muslims, you get 70 virgins, you get food and women and drink and right? Massages all day long. And the Christians, they go on and on. There's unbelievable descriptions and what you're going to get in the next world. So since you mentioned it, so the reward that you guys mentioned, the next world, right, is nothing compared to what the other religions offer. And I'm shopping for a religion here. Come on, sell me on it. What do you have to offer in your religion in the next world, since you mentioned it? Right? What does the Torah tell you? If you go in my ways, what will you have? Food to eat, rain, v'natati gishmechem beitam, adamati ten yevula. And there you have spiritual promises. You're going to have this, you're going to have that. Nowhere in the Torah is the next world mentioned. Right? And why does the Torah not mention anything in the next world? And the only time the rabbis began talking about the next world, so the reason why, the first question is why does the Torah mention the next world? And why did the rabbis begin speaking about the next world 2,000 years ago? Kol Yisrael shlem chelek olam haba. If you do this, you get olam haba. Why? Suddenly you see they're talking about the next world, but the Torah never to speak about it. It's not mentioned until 2,000 years ago. No mention of the next world. And the answer is because it was obvious that there's the next world. The same way, I don't need to make a class for who wants to learn about why not to commit suicide. So people will say, no, I'm not going to that class. Why? You want to kill yourself? No, because it's not even interest to me. I need to go to a class. Why you should not kill yourself? So the same thing, Olam Haba was something that was obvious to everybody until the philosopher Epicur, what we call Epicurus, where it was the philosopher Epicur. He came and said, all there is what you see. All there is the physical, and that's it. And there's nothing after this world. And then the rabbis had to now explain and expand and bring it and talk about it. But in general, so what's the answer that the rabbi gives here? Right? Why is that you guys don't mention anything about the next world? So we're in 105. אבל הם כולם אחרי המוות, ואין בחיים מהם מאומה ולא דבר שיורה עליהם. So he says, the the rabbi answers to the king, because we're not interested in the next world. We're interested in the holiness of life here, now, in this world. Right? By the nations of the world, by the non-Jewish religions, they say that if you do whatever you have to do, you will get in the next world connection to God by once you detach yourself from life. But the Torah talks about here, now, living it. Look what the Torah says. This is you're not allowed to say, by the way, Rav Tzura said, you're not allowed to say this is the most amazing pasuk. Because it says in the Gemara that a person who says, this is a great pasuk, and this pasuk, not great. So that's a big punishment. You're not allowed to say, this is an amazing pasuk. So how do you get around this problem? You say, this is a rich Torah, this is a poor Torah. You're not allowed to say that. So how do you get around it? This is the most amazing pasuk in the Torah. Every pasuk in the Torah is so amazing. That's what Rav Tzvi used to say. So listen to this pasuk. Atem advekim ba'Adonai Elohechem chaim kulchem hayom. You people that are attached to God will be alive. So you'd think, okay, maybe the people that are connected to God, the holy people, only certain individuals will be alive. Chaim kulchem, all of you. Okay, maybe in the next world, maybe when we go to the next world, hayom, chaim kulchem, not just individuals, everybody. You do mitzvot, you go in Hashem's ways, everybody will have dvekut b'Hashem now, here, and today. Right? As we say, nekadesh shemcha ba'olam, keshem shemakdeshim oto b'shmei marom. This is Rav Kook explained, all the other religions, they despaired from this world. The physical world, gone. You can't do it. Okay? The evil is too powerful. The world is bad. Just Christianity, forget about this world. Just, somehow fly to the next world. That you could only save the soul. Save your soul. The body is already gone. The body is evil. It's the original sin. It's, this is what they say. Is that the body you cannot save. Only the soul you could save, and only in the next world. Physical world, what we call society, having a government, it's gone. Right? Buddhism, gone. They gave up also on this world, also on the next world. So what should you do? Commit suicide. I don't want to die. Die without dying. Go and meditate and go into nirvana. You don't have to die, but you're not here. You're here, but you're not here. Just go into nirvana and disappear and let go, and there's nothing. Okay? And that is the same thing by Schopenhauer. There's nothing, everything's bad, and you can't fix anything. Philosophers. So the non-Jewish people, religions, they talk about the next world. Wow! Incredible things of the next world. But they have no proof. What's there? I don't know. They promise these huge things, right? But nobody came back and said, yeah, it was great. Mm-hmm. Right? So basically, it's all a lie. And the king agrees with the rabbi. He says, wow, you're right. And he says, not only are you right, לא ראיתי אחד מן המאמינים ביהודם ההם שמתהווה למהירותם, אבל אם היה ביכולתו לאחרם 1,000 שנים וישאר במסורת החיים ובעול העולם, now we're in 106, ועצבונו היה בוחר בזה. He's like, you're right. All these people that are talking about the next world and how amazing it is and what you're rewarded to, I don't see them wanting to die. I actually see it the opposite. If they could live another 1,000 years, they would be even much happier. So it's all talk. You talk about what you're going to get in the next world. So here, let me help you get there faster. No. They do everything they can to live longer, and right? So they don't even believe in it. It doesn't look like they have any desire to leave this world so fast. And if they could push it off 1,000 years, they'd be happy. With all the suffering of this world, they would do it in a second. Why? Because everybody has a natural desire to live. Everybody wants to live. It's a natural desire. It's healthy. It's built in. You're willing to give your arm to save your heart. Just the way it is. Amar Chaver, the rabbi adds to this, Umat Omar b'mishu ro'eh ele hama'amadim hagdolim ha'melachutiyim. The Christians and the Muslims, right? They talk about the next world. But they don't want it, like you said. Are you willing to die now? You want the next world? Are you willing to die now? No. They'll say no. So you'll see that they like it. It's a lie. So they talk very high, but they're in love with this world. With all what they say, how bad the world is, and how materialistic it is, and how evil it is, and the original sin, and blah, blah, blah. So therefore, they don't know what the next world is. They're not convinced that it exists. Right? Because they can't prove it. But for us, the Jewish people, it's completely different. Because we are 100% sure that it exists, of the next world. Even though the Torah doesn't even talk about it. The Torah only talks about reward in this world. But that's not the reason why the next world exists, as we explained. So how do we know that the next world is true? Because we've tasted it already in this world. Right? We have something that's called Me'ein Olam Haba. We have Shabbat. We have a taste. But even more than that, we know that there's the next world, not because of philosophical explanations, complicated philosophical, but we experienced it ourselves. We've detached ourselves from this world and tasted the next world. And that's why it says in the Gemara that one of the blessings that rabbis would give each other when they met each other was like the most beautiful blessing you could give somebody is Olamcha Tireh Bechayecha. You can look it up in the Gemara Brachot 17. Is that I bless you that you should see the next world in your world now. Live it now. You are living in the next world now. How do you do that? Right? A person, Rashi says, you can live in this world and at the same time be traveling in the next world. So next world is not only a place, it's also a state of being. It's living the soul now. It's living your soul now. Because the soul of this world is the next world. It's already here. So you know 100% that the next world exists because you have experienced it here and now. But I wasn't there. You're right. You weren't there. But the Jewish nation as a collective nation were there and you are part of it. Same way you live right now, right? Same way you're living now what you experienced when you were 2 years old. Because it's engraved in your memory. So any event or thing that happened to the Jewish nation stays with you forever. And if you forgot, you can connect it through the connection in the Klal Yisrael, right? That's connected to God. Through the collective, that's why we pray. We do a minyan because we pray. We're connecting ourselves to the whole, to the community, to the Jewish nation, which is one entity. And when you put yourself in and become one of those people, then you experience that thing. And it says that if someone's converting and he says, I'm willing to convert, right? Well, a person that converts, you don't convert to do one mitzvah, right? You do it all. You become, the convert becomes, how do you say, sucked into the whole nation, to everybody. And this is, even people that live life without an awareness of the next world, through the mitzvot, you connect to the collective nation. This connects you to Olam Haba. We talked about it a lot in the Masiyat Yesharim, but mitzvot, when you do mitzvot, there's no reward for mitzvot in this world. mitzvot are the next world. Whenever you do a mitzvah, you are connected to the next world. You're building the bridge to the next world. You are connecting to the next world. That's what the mitzvot are. That's what it means. Amar Kuzari. Now already we're at the end of the book. Already it's not the Kuzari is not fighting with the rabbi. He's already, because we said in the past there was some friction and really difficult attacking. Like, oh, you guys did the sin of the golden calf. How could you be worth anything? Now we're already not there. Mostly the king is saying, wow, you're right. I see it. And he's like, yes, I believe in what you're saying. Amar Kuzari. Mibli safek, now we are in 108. Amar Kuzari, מבלי ספק שהוא מתהווה שתתמיד נפשו על הפרידה מחושב ותישאר נהנית באור ההוא והוא מי שמתהווה המוות. He says, you're right. The nations of the world, they blah blah blah, they talk about the next world, but I don't think they really want it. I don't think they're really longing for it, because they have no clue what the next world is. They've never tasted it. But who a person who tasted it, right? Of a person that tasted the next world, like you, the Jewish people, only you could really be longing for it, to get to it, right? Like we said, a person, the King David said that like I'm longing for it. When will it be the time that I will get to the next world and be able to enjoy the Shekhinah, enjoy the presence of godliness? It's true, yes. Someone who tasted it does want it and is looking for it, because he understands the pleasure. Like it says in the Gemara, that one moment of the pleasure you have in the next world, in the Mishnah, יפה שעה אחת של קורת רוח בעולם הבא מכל חיי העולם הבא. One moment of that pleasure and that gift that you can taste, that closeness to God in the next world, is worth the whole pleasure of everything you've had in your whole entire life here in this world. So you, yes, the Jewish people, I understand why you're looking for it, because your whole world is nothing compared to the next world. And obviously, you are waiting to die. This is what and again, remember, the Kuzari, the king, mentions certain things, and then the rabbi has to help reframe it, help explain it in a correct way. Because still, he's not Jewish, and he's saying things the way he would experience it. So what is the answer? 109, the rabbi answers, I hear what you're saying. אבל יעודנו הידבקנו בעניין האלוהי בנבואה, משהו קרוב לה, והתחבר העניין האלוהי בנו בגדולה ובכבוד ובמופתים. He says, no, you have a mistake here, sorry. There is no one of us that is waiting to die to get to that pleasure of the next world. Nobody, no Jew, no matter how great he is saying, oh, when will I be killed? When will I finally die? Doesn't exist in Judaism. Even though we know the most incredible reward that's there, and we know how sweet it is and how great it is, and we know that it exists because we've tasted it, but we do not have this powerful desire to die. Why? Because he says what the nations of the world are talking about, what happens after you die, right? Because we experience it now. The reason why we're not waiting to die is because we live it now, the next world. We experience it now. We don't need to die. Therefore, we love this world. We love life. My rabbi wrote a song, words to a song, and I put words to it, music to it. And he says, Nohav nifgosh Right? The words are Nohav Lanuach Sham, Lekabel Sachar Al Ma'amatzenu Sham. We're going to love to rest there and get the reward for what we did. Nohav Lashirim Malachim. We'll love singing with the angels. But Nohav La'amol Po. We will love the hard work that we do here. Nohav Lachzik Ma'amad Begufenu Po. We will love to hold on to our bodies here. Nohav Lifgosh et Ribono Shel Olam Sham. Kan Ulefogsho Sham. We will love to meet God there, and we love meeting Him here. We have an experience of meeting God. It's not that it's a sudden. That's why there's a story once of a soldier put a gun to the head of the one of the Lubavitcher rabbis, and he was put a gun to his head, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to kill you." The rabbi smiles and starts to say Shema. Shema Yisrael, with a big smile and a security and peace. And the soldier says, "Aren't you afraid I'm going to kill you?" He says, "Let me explain to you something. You have many gods in one world. I have one world, and I have many worlds in one God. So those toys, they don't mean anything to me." And the soldier says to the rabbi, "You believe in the next world? You believe in life after death?" He says, "No, I believe in life after life." This is what it means to be a Jewish person. We say, "Zachrenu l'chaim, melech hatzratz v'chaim, ukatvenu b'sefer chaim, leman elenu chaim." Look how many times we say the word chaim, life. Chaim, 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 alive, alive, alive. Our ideal is to connect to God in this world. We want the Shekhinah in this world, not there. Ish v'isha zachus Shekhinah b'neim, a man and a woman who got married and they have peace between them, then the Shekhinah dwells between them. The Shekhinah is not just in the next world; it happens here. It happens between a couple who are respectful and have love for each other and treat each other kindly. Okay? So that doesn't change one thing with the fact that we believe we're 100% and we understand the great things that are waiting for us in the next world, but we don't want to go there. So he says, you, the king, Kuzar, you're shocked, right? It's surprising to you what I'm saying, but I'm telling you, this is what it's about. The Jewish people are all about life in this world. We want Dvekut B'Hashem in this world, even though we said, Yafa sha'achat shel tshuva masim tovim kol chay olam haba. One moment of tshuva and good acts in this world is worth all of the pleasure in the next world. Because here is where you can do the mitzvot. So therefore, don't be confused, even though we've had these high spiritual levels. And don't think that because we've experienced these high spiritual levels, so now we just can't wait to get out of here. So now we're just, longing for the next world. We love both worlds, but we don't push it. We don't push it. Like we said in the book Mesilat Yesharim. What is Mesilat Yesharim? Why is the book called like a train track? It's the train track for the people who are straight-hearted or worthy, honest, good people. Why does he use the analogy of the Ramchal? I know we're going off topic, but we're talking about Lam Haba. Why? Because a train track is like a train. You have a stop, and you have to get to another stop. And you could say, okay, I did it very fast. I went full force. I did it. Look how fast I did it. You come to the final station. You say, look, I did it fast. But they ask you, where are all the carts? Did you tie on the cart of your wife? It slows you down. Did it tie on the children? It slows you down even more. You could have done it so fast, but it's not just getting to the final destination. It's getting to the final destination with all the carts that you have tied on, that you put on your wife, you put on your kids, you put on all your actions. You did the right thing. It's not about the speed. It's about serving God every step of the way. Therefore, we don't push it. We're not in a rush to get out of this world. We're not in a rush to, even though we know that we have incredible things waiting for us. But what we want is to be attached to God in this world. That's why the Torah doesn't want to distract you. If you go in my ways, you'll have food, you'll win your wars, and so on. You'll have rain, all these things. Just focus on this world. Focus on being here fully. Don't try to bypass. Don't try to speed it up. Don't stay. How do you say? And that's why dormant. Don't stay dormant. That's why the Rav Tzvira said. So why does the Ramchal, the first chapter, starts out with the next world? Is because if we want to lift up this world, sometimes you got to become a little more olam haba. You have to you're sunk in the mud. You can't lift up anything. So first you lift up yourself a little bit. That's what he said when he would teach the next world in the Siyat Sharim. He would say that become a little more olam habaim, a little more connected to the next world. And the Ramchal talks about how this world is like the darkness. The next world is like the light. The next world is billion. So what do? We live where it's the world of darkness here, and the next world, the world of light. He says you open up the door between the next world and this world when you have this understanding and this awareness and of what the next world is. And Shabbat is a taste of the world to come. Me'ein olam haba, Shabbat menucha. Right? You have taste. When you open up the door between the next world and this world, like we're learning now about what is olam haba, you open up the door. The billions of lights of the next world illuminate the hallway, the dark hallway that we're in this world, the passing through, right? But you have to be here fully. You have to focus on what you're here, and this is what it's all about. And this is what's about. We want to have Dvikut in Hashem, which is the Beit HaMikdash, and we want our government to have an army and to have a country and a state, a holy state. That's what interests us. What we're interested in is Kiddush Hashem, a huge Kiddush Hashem that is not just in our nation, but in the whole entire world. And you have to remember the fact that we don't have prophecy means that we are missing something very, very crucial. Coming in touch with Olam Haba, you met the prophet, you were there. The closest thing you have now is you see the tzaddikim that have Ruach HaKodesh. So I highly recommend everyone should be connected to some tzaddik with Ruach HaKodesh. I have one here, right here. My son, tzaddik, got out of Gaza, a person that has Mesirut Nefesh, self-sacrifice of Jewish people. That's like the highest level of experiencing Olam Haba. Al ken enenu omer b'Torah. The Torah doesn't say to you, Ki im taseh mitzvah zot, if you do this mitzvah, avichem elachei hamavet el ganot v'hanaot, I'll take you to these rivers and to all these pleasures. The Torah doesn't say that. V'omer v'atem tiyu li'am v'ani yeh lechem le'elohim. The Torah says, if you do my mitzvahs, you will be my nation, and I will be your God. Manhig otchem, and I will guide you. V'yeh michem mi sheyamod lefanai u'mi sheyaleh l'shamayim kasher yolchim ben hamalachim. Right? ויהיו גם מלאכי הולכים ביניכם בארץ, תראו אותם יחידים ורבים שומרים אתכם ונלחמים לכם. Hashem, God did not promise to bring us to these places of pleasures. It doesn't exist. What did He promise us? Vayitem li sgula. Here in the land, we will be a wonderful nation, a nation that makes a Kiddush Hashem in this world. Here in this world, we will be married to revelations, spiritual revelations, right? Like it says about Elyon Navi, who went up in a fire wagon up to heaven with his body. His body and his soul went up together. That's what we want, to uplift the body, to uplift the soul, to uplift everything, not detach. And it's not that there's some kind of detach between the body and the soul, and the body's gone, or it's despair. Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Navi's body was so pure and holy that there was no barrier between him and his soul. And Yechezkel, right? Yechezkel as well. He was on such a high level that he was called Ben Adam, and not just Adam. And Moshe Rabbeinu was like a spirit, was like an angel. These are the people. And with the wars of Hashmonaim that they fought, angels were fighting with the Hashmonaim. Godly powers. This is like, wow. Our whole history, there's like a certain dimension that is godly angels. And we know prophecy could only happen in the land of Israel. The Gemara asks a question: how did Yechezkel prophesy in Bavel? He was on the river there. So the answer was, he started prophesying before he left, and then it was like continuing from. He was able to continue the prophecy that began. Like the broadcast started and it kept going, but he could, if it was something that stopped, if it didn't start, it would not. And this is it. And so therefore, the Rambam says that you cannot have prophecy out of Israel. Ruach HaKodesh you could have, but not prophecy. There was millions of prophets. It says in the Gemara, Kiflaim ki yotzei Mitzrayim. You had 3 million people leave Egypt, double the amount. So you had 6 million prophets in a period of 800 years. That's like 200,000 prophets a year. Right? Not everyone had it, but everyone was connected to a prophet. And the only ones that were prophecies for generations were the ones we wrote down. Those are the 48 prophets, right? And 7 women prophets, right? So this is really an incredible state that we have. This is a state. This is the Kiddush Hashem in the world, and thank God we have everything is here. We have a state, we have Torah, and we're supposed to have all these things. We're supposed to have. We're supposed to have agriculture and business, and the Shekhinah is supposed to be in the world, and this is what we're interested in, and therefore, so that's the basic idea, and we'll keep going next week. Thank you very much, everybody.